welcome. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your valuable time with me. I'm really hoping that throughout the course of this video, I'm able to impart some valuable knowledge to you for your own health, your well-being, and that of your loved ones and your community. My name is Altaire Cambata, and I am a certified clinical herbalist and nutritionist. I studied at the Colorado School of Clinical Herbalism, where we had a 2-year program investigating a comprehensive materia medica of different medicinal plants from around the world and how nutrition is foundational to our well-being. And we studied pathophysiology, human anatomy, and of course how plants and the human body interact in order to generate a relationship that produces harmony and balance, and that supports the natural intelligence of our body. You know, we were taught that we don't heal the body. Truly, the body knows how to heal itself. We just provide the conditions to support that process as much as possible. And during this time, yes, crucially important to listen to the advice that's coming from the medical community. We want to be washing our hands properly for 20 seconds, making sure we're getting in between the fingers and the thumb. We want to make sure that if we're coughing or sneezing, we do so in the crook of our arm, and that we are conscientious of the fact that this virus is being transmitted through the droplets that exit the respiratory system when we cough or sneeze, and we need to contain that. And then also, of course, limiting exposure as much as possible and staying inside. And at least we have technology, right? Like, this is amazing that I'm able to come to you right now wherever you are. And I think that we need to make sure that we're engaging in those foundational practices for our own health and for the well-being of our community. And then in addition to that, of course, you know, from the perspective of someone who's very interested in natural and holistic medicine, then there is so much else that we can be doing to strengthen our immunity and to enhance the function of our respiratory system and to decrease our chances of actually contracting this virus. I will say that of all the herbs and the supplements that I talked to you about today, there is no scientific evidence, there's no clinical study, there's no literature that's going to say that this herb helps with coronavirus. We don't have that information available to us right now. I think that very conservative folks in the medical community then are going to shy away from suggesting anything at all. That's not my approach, and I'll explain why. I believe that we have enough of a precedent in terms of understanding the various antiviral benefits, the immune enhancing benefits of herbs that throughout history have been used for their ability to protect us. You know, our immune system is our first line of defense, and there are all kinds of ways that we can support our immunity, and that's what I know how to do with herbs and with foods. And all of the suggestions that I make to you today, I'm making because I feel like they demonstrate reasonable cause to believe that they will be of benefit, while demonstrating very little to virtually zero risk. So, you know, it's not going to hurt to take any of these things, but I believe that because we've seen kind of a proof of concept in terms of how they've been used traditionally, and also scientific literature that points to their ability to help us with viral contagions, that, you know, I feel like it's enough information for me to share it with you. These are all therapeutics that I'm incorporating into my lifestyle currently. You know, I've called this video my quarantine care kit, because these are things that I want to have on hand. These are things I haven't had trouble finding. You know, all of the things that I recommend to you today, I want them to be affordable. I want them to be accessible and not, you know, exotic or difficult to access. I will also say, before I dive into the herbs themselves, that there's so much we can be doing to strengthen our immune system without supplementing any kind of like external component, right? So these are things that all just happen by way of choices that we make on a daily basis. For example, choices to get enough sleep. 7 to 9 hours of sleep is going to strengthen our immune system. We want to stay hydrated. Okay, we want to limit our consumption of sugar. There are studies to show that when we eat sugar, it actually compromises the immune system for 2 to 4 hours after we consume sugar. So I know that it's tempting, if you're just at home watching movies, to reach for comfort foods. But this is not the time to do that. Really, there's so much we can be doing in our daily choices that ensure that if we do have to enter the community to go to the grocery store, or the pharmacy, or the bank, or whatever the need may be, that we're going outside with an immune system that is better equipped to ensure that we don't ourselves become infected and then pass that infection on to others. So some other things we can be doing, limiting stress. Cortisol inspires the release of inflammatory cytokines in the body, which directly compromise our immune function. So it's not a bad thing at all to find pleasure throughout your day and to relish in the opportunity, which is the gift of stillness that is provided to us currently, in order to, spend more time in the garden, to give ourselves permission to read books and take baths and to do things that support our central nervous system and that make us feel calm and at ease. If you're watching this video on the Maitake Yoga YouTube station, then there are incredible resources on this station for meditations and yoga practices that will directly reduce your stress. Stay informed, but we want to temper fear with facts, meaning that just be careful, be discerning about where you're getting your media right now and how much you're feeding into and whether that information is really of value to you in your own daily life. So those are all things that we can be doing to support our immune system. I will also say that these herbs are dose dependent. These supplements that I'm recommending are dose dependent. So you do want to be trying to take them intermittently throughout your day. We want to keep the fire of our immune system strong. And by doing that, we add tinder to the fire intermittently throughout the day. So the more access you have to the herbs and the remedies that I'm about to recommend, the better. And just make sure that you're intentionally introducing them into your system through mealtime or tea breaks or, however you want to get creative. Okay, so let's dive in. The first herb that I want to talk about is garlic, and this is really, if you had one apocalypse herb, I'd say that garlic is one of the strongest herbal remedies that we have access to in terms of its antimicrobial effects. And what that means is that garlic, there is scientific literature to indicate that garlic is antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral. And a lot of that activity comes from a sulfur compound called allicin. And allicin is activated when you crush or cut the garlic clove. So what I recommend doing is to literally take a garlic clove and cut it up. Wait 10 to 15 minutes. I've read that this is how the component allicin is able to kind of reach its peak potency, is over that initial period of time. And then after the 10 or 15 minutes to eat the garlic clove raw. Is that going to be uncomfortable? Yeah. Is it going to burn a little bit? Is it going to be super hot? Yeah. Some of us love garlic and can handle it better than others. One way to make it more palatable is to mix it with honey. But I do think, what better time than now to tap into those courageous warrior qualities that exist inside each of us in times where we have to step up and pay attention. And I was thinking about starting like a garlic clove challenge on my social media channel, because it's hilarious, right, to watch someone eat a garlic clove. But really, it's cheap, it's available, get some garlic, eat a clove a day. You'll feel better for it. allicin sulfur compound in garlic. If you cook with garlic, allicin is fairly unstable, so you're going to be disrupting the compounds. You will get some medicinal benefit, but really, if you can eat it raw, yeah, you're going to be a true hero. So second herb I want to talk about is ginger. So ginger, the reason why I recommend ginger is because there are studies that show that when ginger interacts with the respiratory tissue secretes a protein called interferon B, which is antiviral. So if we have access to a food that's going to directly increase the strength of our respiratory immunity function, then I think it's absolutely something that we should be incorporating into our daily routine. So ginger, again, get it fresh. I have some powdered ginger. I work with powdered ginger, but the medicinal properties are going to be much stronger in a fresh ginger root. So chop it up, steep it like tea in hot water, drink it. It's delicious. We're lucky that this is, actually a really tasty one to incorporate into our diet. And so that's why I recommend ginger. The third herb I want to talk about is elderberry. And I'm lucky enough that the little organic grocery store in downtown Lugano, Switzerland, where I live, is selling elderberry juice. And I bought this at BioCasa. Elderberry, this is, it's a juice concentrate. And the reason why elderberry comes to mind for me when I'm thinking about antiviral immunity is because, the term antiviral gets thrown around a lot in the herbal community. You'll see, top 10 antiviral herb posts everywhere you look, but a lot of those herbs, they're not actually interacting directly with the virus, the viral strain. They are enhancing our immunity in some way. Perhaps they're exciting white blood cell activity in the body, but they're not interacting with the virus itself. But elderberry is one of the only herbs for which there is there are studies to show that when elderberry interacts with a virus, that it can actually, because it contains hyaluronidase inhibitors, which is the enzyme that viruses use to break into our cell where it then replicates itself and becomes so disruptive to our wellness, that elderberries contain hyaluronidase inhibitors which prevent the virus from being able to actually dock and bind to the cell. So that's really exciting, and elderberry is going to be more beneficial at those very initial stages of infection, where we want to nip that viral activity in the bud before it starts hijacking our cells for its own replication process. So that's why I recommend elderberry. And of course, you can do elderberry juice, elderberry syrup. You might find powdered elderberry that's encapsulated. All of those are excellent options and ones that I do recommend. What else? Okay. I love talking about medicinal mushrooms because fungi, the fungi kingdom is just so fascinating on its own. But also the implications for our immunity are huge. So here, for example, I have a reishi powder. Reishi is a medicinal mushroom. There are a lot of medicinal mushrooms out there. There's cordyceps, there's lion's mane, there's agaricus. If you're in the supermarket, the grocery store, and you can find a powdered, encapsulated, or loose powder of a medicinal mushroom extract, then that's great. But you want to look for a medicinal mushroom extract that is full spectrum extract or double extract, which means that there are components that have been concentrated, right, that are both water soluble and alcohol soluble. Mushrooms contain a very wide spectrum of constituents that are beneficial to our health. So the best is that the best case scenario is that we find supplements that are double extracted. But like I said, I want to steer away from herbs that are difficult to find or exotic. So what I would recommend is that you buy and cook Shiitake and Maitake mushrooms at home. And again, these are delicious foods, but they're going to contain polysaccharides Some of those polysaccharides are beta glucans, and the way that beta glucans work in the body is that they activate an immune response because the body interprets them as though they're pathogens or antigens. So, you know, initially you would think, well, isn't that a bad thing? I don't want to be eating anything that the body interprets as being like a foreign pathological invader. But the thing is that these constituents are actually completely benign, and we can ingest them with zero harm to our own system, but it kind of tricks the body into activating our immune response. And the reason why that's so important is that we want our immune response to be constantly practiced, and we want it to be learning. It's like, this is kind of a clunky metaphor, but here in Switzerland, all the men have to undergo military training when they're young adults. And then after that, every year they have to refresh their training with 3 weeks of additional training. And they learn how to shoot guns and make explosives, and that's more than a lot of other countries do, right, in terms of their military and in terms of general, like, civilian militia training. But it's not their profession, right? They're not Marines. They're not training like the Marines train for years and years and years, and then this is actually their job, right? So, excuse the clunky metaphor, but really, like, we have the option to train our immune system, and it can either be like the Swiss military, or the Swiss militia, community civilian militia, or it can be like the Marines or like the Navy SEALs, right? And so our immune system is our first line of defense. We have immune cells all over our body, in our lymph system, in our thymus gland, in our bone marrow. We have immunity cells in our saliva and our tears and on our skin, and we want to keep that active and responding. And so a really awesome way to do that is to eat medicinal mushrooms that contain polysaccharides. So that's why I recommend Maitake and Shiitake mushroom. If you are cooking your mushrooms at home, then I would recommend using coconut oil to do that. And the reason why I say that is because there's actually some really awesome research that's coming out of the Philippines right now, where the Philippines is looking at coconut oil as a way to address the coronavirus. So coconut oil has a long-standing history. There's a lot of scientific literature on coconut oil, demonstrating that it not only can help to dissolve the outer membrane of a virus, but it also helps to prevent the virus from docking and binding to the cell, and can also then interrupt the replication process that starts to happen within the cell. So again, this is one of those herbs that has a direct antiviral benefit, which is super cool. And coconut oil is, you know, it's accessible, it's out there, it's shelf stable, just like garlic and ginger. You know, it's amazing that we have access to so many medicinal foods that we can buy now, and we don't have to worry about them going bad, right? So coconut oil is one of them, and I am really keen to continue to follow what the Philippines discovers in terms of coconut oil and coronavirus. But because it's such a potent and powerful antiviral food, I just recommend cooking with it. I recommend eating it off a spoon. I recommend adding it to your smoothies or your porridge. And, you know, in this way, you're introducing like an awesome, tasty antiviral food into your diet. So those are all of kind of the herbs and foods that I wanted to discuss with you that I'm keeping in my quarantine care kit. And I also want to discuss some supplements that I think are important, because when we're strengthening our immunity, you know, that requires a lot of energy, and that requires a lot of vitamin and nutrient cofactors to actually generate our immune components. So, you know, the quality, for example, of a fruit on a tree, the nutritional quality of that fruit is going to be dependent on the quality of the soil and how we're tending that soil. So the amount of magnesium in an apple, for instance, is going to be dependent on how much magnesium is actually in the soil. And just like we want to make sure that we're generating really healthy, high quality immune components, we want to make sure that we're introducing the nutritional cofactors to make that happen. So that's why I recommend taking a multivitamin every day. And not all multivitamins are created equal. When you're looking at your multivitamin options, try to go for one that is food-based. The body recommends, or the body recognizes supplements that are derived from natural foods rather than supplements that are synthesized in a laboratory, right? So if you can get a food grade multivitamin, then that's going to be advantageous. It's going to be more bioavailable. Your body's going to more easily assimilate that. And then also when I'm looking at the supplement facts on the back of a multivitamin supplement, I want to make sure that it contains an entire B complex. We want all the B vitamins. You might have heard that vitamin B6 is particularly good for immunity. And even, you know, being able to help with late stage infections, and that's true. But all of the B vitamins work synergistically, and you want to have them in proper ratios to one another so that they are operating at their best in our body. So make sure that you're looking at a multivitamin that contains a B complex. And then another red flag for me is that when I'm looking at vitamin B12 specifically, we want vitamin B12 to be derived from methylcobalamin, not cyanocobalamin. So cyanocobalamin is a lot cheaper, and so the multivitamin is going to be a lot cheaper, but with a multivitamin, really, you get what you pay for. So it's worth it to spring for the multivitamin that contains methylcobalamin, and that's because the body recognizes and assimilates methylcobalamin way more than it does cyanocobalamin. So that's really important to look at. And then of course, your daily multivitamin is going to have vitamin C in it. And vitamin C is not the magic bullet for immunity. There are some studies to show that if you take vitamin D every day when you have the common cold, then it will shorten the duration of your flu symptoms. Again, you know, it's just one piece in kind of a constellation of a way that we can approach our immune system. So, but you know, that's a great thing about taking a multivitamin is that you will get your daily vitamin C. And then in combination with that, I recommend a vitamin D supplement. So I take a liquid vitamin D that allows me to get between 1,000 and 4,000 CUs a day. That's more than what your doctor generally is going to recommend for you. However, when we look at human history and we look at nutritional anthropology, it's obvious that our ancestors had way more vitamin D than we do, and that being deplete in vitamin D has all kinds of health issues and consequences that, you know, are plaguing modern contemporary society. So vitamin D3, you might be thinking, well, if, you know, I'm getting enough sun in the garden every day, then why would I need to take a vitamin D supplement? And, you know, the answer to that is that, first of all, the amount of vitamin D that our body actually metabolizes is going to be highly dependent on our skin exposure to the sun, as well as how much melatonin we create in our skin, in our epidermis, and also how old we are. So as we get older, it's much more difficult to generate vitamin D. And another thing that occurs, which not a lot of people are aware of, is the fact that we actually can't generate vitamin D at certain times of year because of the angle of the sun as it hits Earth. So the closer you live to the equator, the more likely you are to be able to generate vitamin D year round. The farther you move from the equator, that window narrows. So here in Switzerland, we can only generate vitamin D from mid-spring to mid-fall. So it's April, it's the middle of March right now, and, you know, I would say that we're not really fully generating our vitamin D until April here in Switzerland. So That's why it's an important thing to supplement with additional vitamin D during these times. The same is true for Colorado, which is where I was previously living. If you're watching this in Colorado, know that you're going to be generating vitamin D from mid-spring to mid-autumn. You know, you can find information based on wherever you live in the world as to when and how you're generating vitamin D. But I was looking at a meta-analysis of 25 different randomized controlled trials across 14 different countries, and the conclusion was that by supplementing with vitamin D3 and being replete, being full to the adequate levels of vitamin D3 in our bodies, there was a 50% decreased chance of contracting a respiratory illness. So by making sure that we have enough vitamin D, we're directly supporting our respiratory health and our respiratory immunity by 50%. That's huge. That's huge. You know, I don't want to ignore information like that when we're all trying to do our best to stay well during this time. I think that's valuable information. So that's why I'm sharing it. Right, so I also recommend taking a high quality fish oil, and I take the Ringana Omega fish oil EPA DHA supplement. You know, if you want my recommendations on how to source any of these things, especially if you're keen on like ordering some supplements online and having them delivered straight to you, which feels like a really easy, like the best method, right, of acquiring substances and medicines right now is if they can be delivered directly to us, then let me know, because I'm happy to help you with that, whether you're in America or Europe or whatever. Just reach out to me. I'm happy to help with that. So the reason why I recommend a high quality fish oil is because of our health on a cellular level. So our cells, each one of them is wrapped in a lipid bilayer, and that means that each cell has like a fatty ring around the outside of it, and that ring is what dictates what gets in and what gets out of the cell. And the quality of that fatty lipid bilayer around the cell is directly dependent on the types of fats that we ingest. So if you're eating a lot of trans fats or rancid oils, then that ring around your cell is going to be compromised, and that makes me think that a virus is going to have an easier time accessing the inside of the cell. And so even so, you know, so much of our health occurs on a cellular level, and so we just want to make sure that the cellular integrity of our body is really strong, which is why I recommend taking a strong EPA DHA supplement and also eating healthy fats during this time, right? You know, I haven't gotten into diet more generally, but definitely eat the rainbow, leafy greens, lots of fruits, lots of veg, just, you know, stay away from starches and simple sugars. And then also, you know, if you can have access to avocado, some healthy fats, like coconut oil, for instance, that's going to serve you as well. So I also want to talk about magnesium. So magnesium is something that I take every day in the evenings because one of the benefits is that it is relaxing to our musculoskeletal system, and that we will feel an impact in the body in terms of the body unwinding a little bit and relaxing, and it helps some people get to sleep. But the reason why I think it's so important for immunity is that our immune system requires a lot of energy, and magnesium is a really important cofactor for the Krebs cycle, or producing ATP in the cell. And if it's been a while since your last biology class, ATP is the energy currency of the cell. It's a process that occurs within the mitochondria of the cell that creates energy that flows throughout our bodies and allows us to live and thrive, and that our organ systems have energy to conduct all of their basic functions. So magnesium is responsible for over 300 different enzymatic processes in the body, and it's also a cofactor for ATP production. And the reason why I recommend this generally kind of to the human population is because it's becoming more and more difficult to acquire magnesium naturally through our diet. And that's because soil around the world is becoming more and more depleted of magnesium. So we can supplement very easily with magnesium and support our body from the cellular level up as a result of that. And then finally, you know, it's so important to take or to eat foods that have high probiotic content, and to potentially be taking a supplement with a high probiotic content. The reason for that is that our gut bacteria, it's so important that we keep our gut bacteria in balance. When our gut bacteria gets out of balance, and there are more unfriendly or pathological bacteria in the gut, they can actually release all kinds of different compounds that compromise the immune system and make it very difficult for the liver to detoxify and clear toxic components within the body. So we want to make sure that we're supporting the good guys and we're supporting our beneficial bacteria and flora in the gut. And so that's why I recommend eating some fermented food every day. I have a really awesome slaw here. It's beet and goji berry. Again, I got this from Biocasa downtown. But also if you're eating a yogurt, please stay away from yogurts that have a lot of sugar in them. But you know, if you need to sweeten your yogurt, add a little bit of honey and some berries, but otherwise like a plain yogurt, kombucha, coleslaw, kimchi, those are all awesome. Miso soup, those are all awesome fermented foods. We want to be nourishing our gut bacteria. If you do go for a probiotic supplement, then what I recommend is that you find a supplement where the CFUs, which is actually the count of the amount of bacteria in the capsule, is in the billions, and that it's enteric coated, which means that it can survive the stomach acid and make it into the intestine where it can populate. And also that you're looking for as diverse an amount of many different kinds of bacteria as possible within the lactobacillus and the bifidobacteria strains. So that's what I recommend in terms of probiotics. And that concludes, you know, what's in my quarantine kit at the moment. And if you have any further questions, if you need more specialized, customized support, if you're struggling emotionally, if you feel like your mental health is suffering, if you feel stressed out because you don't know how you're going to be paying your bills, you don't know how to handle being alone in quarantine, if a lot is coming to the surface for you in terms of your emotional wellness, you know, these are all topics and aspects of well-being that I work on with my clients all the time. And I'm really happy. I'm in such a blessed situation at the moment in that I can be completely of service. And if you need that kind of support, you know, take a look at my website. I'll make sure that that information is in the link associated with this video. Look at what I do. You know, I believe in helping humans who are here to make a difference, who want to become conscious co-creators with the universe, for their own reality, who want to tap into their freedom and their joy, who are willing to look at their wellness across the spectrum of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health, and who want to dive deep into making their own happiness a priority. And I think that the most beautiful gift we can give to others at any time, but especially during these unexpected and trying and challenging times, the most important gift we can give to others is our own happiness and peace and sense of well-being. And if you need support and guidance with that, know that I am here. And even if, you know, you can't afford how I typically price my programs, please still reach out, because I'm sure we can come to some kind of an agreement that works for both of us. And otherwise, I'm just praying for your health. I'm wishing blessings for your health and your loved ones and our communities. And I'm holding the intention that we all come out of this so much stronger and more resilient, and having learned how to better take care of ourselves and others, and having learned what's truly important to us now that we've been asked to wander away from civilization, to leave the collective, and to go farther and further and deeper out into the woods of the stillness and the solitude that is the gift that has been granted to us during these times. And that in the woods, where we're able to examine the collective from a completely different perspective, we find and discover what is working for us, what is not working for us, and ultimately what is truly important, and how do we want to live our lives going forward. You know, I'm really passionate about this. I'm writing about this a lot on my social media channels, so I'll make sure I share that information with you all too. And please, I'm really looking forward to meeting virtually if you feel called. And thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for listening, and I really hope this was helpful.